Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Whiteaker Community Council meeting of January 11th. It's our general meeting. I'm Dilenia Cardona, your chair. One of the things we're going to do is give a little bit of time for public comments. And then after that, Thea's up with Emily Proudfoot. And then Frank Lawson, the general manager from EWEB, is here from the Board of Commissioners. And then we just kind of need to tie up the motion for the fundraising idea that Thea gave you guys by email. And then I just have a few announcements after that. One little instructions. There's a lot of people here tonight, so I won't be able to see hands. So if you want to speak, please write your name in the chat just one time, and then I will use that as your speaking order. Does anybody need to say anything? My chat's going crazy. All righty. Thea, if you want to go ahead and get started. Did we lose Thea?
I am not seeing Thea on the, yeah.
I think she got bumped out.
Here she comes.
Okay.
Hold on. Go ahead, Thea. I'm telling you, you're muted. Thea, you're muted, and I was muted.
I got it. I am muted. Thanks. Sorry, guys. It's technical difficulties, obviously. I'm used to my computer. Do you want me to share? Is it public comment time? Okay. So I have some updates. Exciting news on the housing grant. We were able to give out 6 checks to people to keep people in their homes in the month of December. And as of today, we have 23 applicants for January. So we're running into a few bumps with checks not getting to landlords, but that'll get ironed out. But we are starting to help people with the housing grant, so that's really awesome. And park update on WJ. The fences are not coming down soon, anytime soon, guys. They want the grass to grow and be very, very strong. And I would like to ask the city, when they do have an opening, if we can be involved, because I think maybe we can have some of our local artists there and some booths there and some music. I don't know. I'm going to ask. We'll see. I met our new city councilor, the interim city councilor, Lindsay yesterday, Lindsay Leach, very nice young woman. And I actually ended up meeting with Chief Skinner as well. And Lindsay's excited to come in February. To our meeting in February. Neighborhood.
Thea, just FYI, your sound is really breaking up. So just FYI.
Okay, I'm at the hospital, so let me see if
Well, I think what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and have Emily PROUDFOOT. She's going to be talking about the plans that are going into Scobert Park. Go ahead, Emily.
Hi, sorry, I was muted. Hi, it's great to be here and thank you for having me. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Emily PROUDFOOT. I'm the principal landscape architect at the Parks and Open Space Planning Office at the city. I have a few other roles. I was the, thank you, Derek. I was the project manager for the Downtown Riverfront Park project. And then I've also, I sit on the Public Art Committee as a voting member of the Public Art Committee. I'm a staff member, but there's lots of public art in parks. And so I'm involved a lot with public art. So, and with that, I have touched the Whiteaker many, many times. So I've been working with Shirsa. We sponsor the Whiteaker Market, which is super cool. I work with Thea. I've worked with several of you to sponsor events in Scobert Gardens Park to make sure that, you know, you don't have to pay permit fees to activate our parks. I was also the project manager for the City Center Skate Park many years ago. So I've been with the city for going on 24 years, working in parks, and I'm super passionate, and I don't know, I have lots to share. So I think before we get started, I think one of the things that I think has gotten increasingly difficult to do is to talk about parks and not talk about public safety at the same time. So, and I don't expect us to, because I know that this is an ongoing issue for the Whiteaker. It has been for a super long time. And when, you know, I first started talking to the Whiteaker about Scobert Gardens, it's been pretty intense. And I know that your neighborhood is probably, you know, individually and collectively just experienced a lot of sort of trauma around it, and a lot of just angst around what happens in parks. And it's gotten a lot more serious. We've been through many things. And so I want to acknowledge all of that. And I'll talk a little bit about my history with Scobert as well. But I just want to acknowledge that. And what I'd like to do, if possible, is see if we can avoid the rabbit hole. Not that it's not real, right? But sort of avoid the rabbit hole of a lot of, you know, what are we going to do about these problems? Because we're working on them constantly. We're just working on them constantly. The fact that we're still working on them constantly is an indicator, I think, of some of the intractability of it and how serious the problem is. And so I super want to acknowledge it. I also want to talk about visions for the future for Scobert Gardens Park, because I think it's it provides it's not doing it now, and it hasn't done it for a long time, but I think it can provide a fundamental service to the neighborhood, and it has a service area actually, and really what I'm looking for a vision around, and I'm hoping that we'll develop collectively together over the next year or two, is what do we want for Scobert Gardens Park, and how do we want it to serve our neighborhood? So the Whiteaker deserves a neighborhood park that's functional and positive, and you know, really an amenity for your community just as much as any other neighborhood. And you know, so many of these ongoing larger societal problems have kind of kept us from doing that. So I'm looking to think outside the box and do some other things. So, okay, big breath. So back in 2017, we did come to the neighborhood, and we had plans back then to do some renovations to Scobert Gardens Park, and we were ready to do that. And you know, it was a bunch of pretty challenging conversations, but we got a lot of great information. And then, you know, we didn't have, you know, key funding. And then we also, like, and I'm just going to be honest about this, but the Downtown Riverfront Park ate me for lunch. That's what actually happened. And so the project's largely wrapped up. I'm still working on some pieces of it, but I think now we're coming back. We've identified some funding, and we'll probably need more than we've already identified, but that's okay. I think it's part of the conversation. But we got a lot of good information back at that time. And I think a lot of it's still super relevant, and we'll bring it forward in this process. But there's a couple other really great things that have happened in the last 5 years that are almost 6 now that I think are even more relevant. And one of those things is that the Whiteaker market now activates the site every Sunday for a good 4 months of the year: May, June, July, August, September, October, 5. And it's such a wonderful event. And the way that it activates the park on Sundays is phenomenal. It's just like, and all these wonderful artists and all this good food, and just the sense of community that comes into the space is really like it's a good part of a vision, right? Like that's how we want the park to feel. So that's a big deal. And I think that's a new piece of information to add to our vision. And then I think also we've had a pandemic, and we are finally beginning to fully understand kind of the breadth and scope of our homelessness problem and where that gets focused. And so to me, one of the places I think we need to start, and I've been asked to do this by our internal staff, is to start with the public safety question. And so with that, we're going to start internally on that. And I'm going to be asking EPD and park ambassadors and our right-of-way folks, a lot of the people who are working within the neighborhoods to address a lot of these things pretty much on a daily basis. I'm going to start with them and hear what they have to say, just to begin to crack, like, what problem are we trying to solve?
Emily,
yeah.
I also want to make note, because I know that the city is taking a lot of heat for this, and people really need to identify that Lane County, the county is who's responsible for the welfare of the people. People need to understand that that is part of the problem. If they don't do their part, it's going to be the same thing for the city over and over again.
Well, right. And so I think it's how I understand it in a very broad picture is that it's a systematic failure of systems over decades at a federal level, a state level, a county level, and the lack of funds actually to be able to implement what's really needed. And now we have a crisis that we must deal with, and it's very, very, very difficult. So it lands in parks a lot. So one of the other things that I've really thought about, and I've thought about the Whiteaker, is I think about it as like another downtown, like another vibrant place of people and business and food and music and just a lot of really wonderful things that happen in the Whiteaker, and art and public art, and it's just so rich in so many ways. And I think that there are, we have a real opportunity to celebrate a lot of those aspects of the Whiteaker in our park. And I also think about it as, well, what if we built a neighborhood park like what they have in New York City? And so that it has some urbanity to it, but it also has big trees, or it has, it's this kind of really important and special place. But you know what? Maybe we put a fence on it and we lock it up at night. And every night, everyone, we go home. And so it's a safe place, and we don't get established things. And, so anyway, a fence doesn't fix all things, right? Like, so that's not, but I'm starting to think about it as more of an urban amenity, but not to the degree that that it's all concrete, or that it's, it doesn't have any green or lush or anything that's sort of about Eugene, right? So it needs to be art, it needs to be green, it needs to be, it needs to have the ability to be beautifully programmed. So power and water hookups and places to sit, and, and then, how do we incorporate the market? Like, how do we make it just really fantastic as a hub of the market, so that maybe it starts there and then it spills into the street or whatever, But I think these are the kinds of things I'm just kind of tossing out there because I want us to imagine this really important public space differently. So and then to that end, because we are over capacity and understaffed, I have also asked for help. So we're going to hire a landscape architecture firm from here in Eugene, and they were a big part of helping Town Square and really working with the Saturday market and each of the individual vendors in the market to talk about what improvements they needed to the space overall, and then how could the market vendors who had been there for 45 years in the same slot, number 18, how could they keep their spot? So I think, so Matt Kohler at Cameron McCarthy has done a lot of, he went to the Saturday market every weekend and walked around and met people and developed relationships and really figured out also how markets work well and flow and all those kinds of things. And so I am excited to bring them on because they're going to help us just capacity wise, and they're going to help us design wise. And I think, they may also help us do interviews or whatever it is. But I think kind of the next step for us is to get them on board, and then we're going to develop a public involvement plan. But I think I'll definitely be back here just talking about where we're going before we actually launch. I think we would launch maybe sometime in March. So, and I love what Claire had to say about 20-minute neighborhoods and all the wonderful things that are happening in the WIT and its proximity to the river and the bike paths and, all these things. I just think it's such a heart center in so many ways. And it deserves every bit of a fantastic, neighborhood park to kind of help it to continue to thrive. So any questions? Claire.
Hi, yeah, so first of all, thank you so much for coming tonight and sharing all that information. I guess I was just wondering, learning from what happened in 2017 and I guess more like what didn't happen.
Yes.
Has there been any safety net or otherwise kind of precautions put into place to make sure that what happened with the downtown riverfront park will not happen again, something similar where something else does not get prioritized?
Yes. So I've definitely, I'm super sensitive to that. I have to,
Can you elaborate? Because I'm not quite sure what.
Okay, well, so what happened is that capacity wise, I was sort of leading this Scobart Gardens Park project, and then my time got completely the city manager said, we will have a downtown riverfront park by the time the world arrives in 2021. And it just, I disappeared, which is what actually happened. So I think Claire's question is super legitimate. What's going to keep Scobart from becoming deprioritized again? And we're going to hire a consultant that will keep us, kind of on track, I think, making sure that we're keeping up our tasks. And so me asking for help is the biggest step that I can take towards making sure that, we're going to get a plan together that's really meaningful for the Whiteaker and that it will eventually happen. I think that I also have a bigger vision around, and I don't know, I'll talk to more of you about it, but really connecting some of the bigger businesses in the area to investing in the park a little more and what that looks like. And does that help us with fundraising? Does it help us, I don't know that we need to fundraise, but I think we'll need more money than we're planning for right now. And so I want to, or is there a phasing that works well or whatever, but in any case, having a consultant on board is going to keep us on task and on track. So hopefully that's a helpful answer, but yeah, asking for help is exactly what I need to do right now. So
thanks so much. I appreciate
Stephen,
your answer.
Of course. Jennifer Hoover.
Actually, Stephen had a question. He put his name in the chat.
In the chat. Okay.
Yeah, if you guys would put your names in your chat and not raise your hand.
Okay, because I can see hands raised. So I won't call. Okay, I'm going to let you call on people. Dilenia. Okay. Stephen.
Emily, welcome to the WIT.
Thank you.
Good to meet you. As you envisage the design process, do you have a budget or will you have a budget for a formal charrette design process for public involvement?
We could. I just haven't developed the process yet. So, you know, if that was something that I mean, I think like, yeah, if there's people who are really interested in getting out pens and paper and drawing, that's super cool. We can do that, you know, or you can send me your drawings or, you know, whatever. But once we develop that public involvement process, you know, if we think there's real interest in a charrette style event, you know, I know like we can totally do that. I'm also super, probably more than ever, sensitive about people's time, you know, and like I'm all super glad you're here, but you're volunteering your time, you know, and so, and so like, I just, we need neighborhood engagement. There's no question about that, but I'm also don't want to take advantage of all these people's time, you know, when you have lives and you have things you're doing and, you know, and it's really our job to actually, you know, kind of do this thing with, and really get the input we need by coming to you. So anyway, I just wanted to say that as a caveat.
Okay, and
I'm
then
cautious about a top-down process.
You're cautious about what?
A top-down process. that
Oh,
we then
yes,
react to. Yeah.
that is that's legitimate. Yes, that is legitimate. And I think, especially in the Whiteaker, I think finding a diversity of voices is probably one of the most important things we can do. And I will say that the city is going through, you know, actually City of Eugene Parks and Recreation is going through a lot of, we're doing a lot of equity training right now, like actually sort of really big deal equity training. And about racism and sexism, you know, all the isms and how do we unpack our privilege and a lot of things like that. And so it's helping us also rethink about how do we connect with people and use their time the best, and how do we use our time the best to potentially prioritize hearing from people we don't normally hear from, if that makes sense. So like at one, you know, I have another site where like lots of people have computers. They, you know, could easily get online and take a survey and we get plenty of responses, right? And then I could do that instead of setting up a big meeting and having everybody come, right? And then I could take that time and potentially go and interview and kind of tease out information from folks that like who aren't in the room on a typical basis. So we're trying to do some of that outreach that's deeper and also just sort of more thoughtful and intentional than we've done before. So because we're trying to bust a lot of our, you know, we just need to bust a lot of our assumptions about people's availability. Their, you know, what if you're working 4 jobs and you've got little kids? You're not going to get online because of the survey, you're going to drop into bed every night, but maybe I can pay you to have lunch with me. So I'm looking for some more of that approach for sure as we develop our public involvement plan.
now we do have 3 board members who have questions, but I want to let Catherine, she actually lives in the Whiteaker close to there. Go ahead,
Yeah.
Catherine.
Hi,
and then we'll
Catherine.
Thank
start.
you.
you.
Hi, Emily. Thanks for being here tonight. And
Sure.
I am often not here, but I do live right next to Scobert on the west
Yeah.
side. And it's really exciting to hear that it's coming back online for being prioritized because it's been pretty bad.
I know.
And, you know, I appreciate not going down the rabbit hole because I can only imagine, you know, how you're struggling with those things. But it's a little baby rabbit hole, which is I love the idea of improving Scobert Park, making it more of an urban park,
Yeah.
doing things to keep people safe. But right across the street, you've got Tiny's and there's camping
Yes.
right there, and it just oozes right back over. And the market has been amazing having it there, and it breaks that flow.
Yeah.
But the minute they leave, people flood back in and camp and set up camp for another week. So I don't know if there's a plan to kind of at least, you know, think a little tiny bit outside Scobert to the surrounding areas. I don't know. I have feelings about there being a toilet in the park.
Yep.
Strong feelings that there should be at least one nearby, but I feel like that toilet, that portalette just drew so much negative impact to this tiny little park.
It's so complicated.
it's so complicated, and there needs to be a toilet somewhere nearby,
Okay.
and where to. So anyway, those are just my thoughts. I just want to say I really
Super great.
appreciate. I really
Really
appreciate you putting-
helpful. And I did hear that today, actually, from, some folks who are, I heard it from Joe Waxmansky, who's our head park ambassador. And I think it's going to be really helpful when I meet with sort of internal PD and ambassadors, and also right-of-way cleanup folks, because then they're the ones who have to come in and clean up behind Tiny's, and then it just kicks it back over to the park. So I think, like, okay, what are the broader steps that we're taking, because, it's just this, right? We push here, it pops here, it pushes there,
Totally.
it pops over there. And so, like, what steps are we taking that can be a little bit more holistically, is park improvement an incentive for this and this and this, and what resources are we bringing to that? And actually speaking holistically about, not just displacing a thing and making it really difficult for another neighbor or another business, but holistic improvement on, trying to solve these intractable problems within the neighborhood.
Yeah.
I see the parks more of a catalyst maybe than a problem solver. And then we'll talk about toilets later. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes.
Derek? Yeah.
Oh, I thought Jen would be next because she's right above Catherine.
Is she?
Yeah, Catherine.
Oh,
is-
no, it's you next. I
Oh,
let
okay,
Catherine
okay,
go
okay.
first. Yeah.
Welcome, Emily. Thank you.
Hi,
very much.
Derek.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm a business owner in the neighborhood.
Awesome.
Something that you pointed out a minute ago that I wanted to kind of key in on was you've had people go down and question the Saturday market or the holiday market or the market downtown.
Yeah, kind of work within
and,
that.
What do we do? I would encourage questioning the businesses in the neighborhood, because some of those people in the market aren't from the neighborhood.
Yeah.
So if somebody knocked on my door and asked me questions about it, I would be really excited about that.
Yeah, can do.
And
That's
my
super
door is
helpful.
always open. So I know you mentioned a minute ago about us not taking time to be with you and answer your questions. I myself, as a business owner, I would stop the day and talk to you about what we
Sounds
need to do.
perfect.
So
Yeah.
I appreciate you coming in and talking. I really appreciate your ideas you've got. But engaging in the local businesses that are in the area would be something I would encourage you to do.
I will.
Questioning some of the people that aren't really in the neighborhood worries me a little bit. So
well, and I think that's about I would think about that as like market functionality, but business information, you guys who are coming and working in the neighborhood every day is a totally different set of feedback. And I'm really happy you spoke up. And the fact that you're willing and excited about talking to us about it is super awesome. So thank you for saying so.
I am nothing but excited about it, because I won't be in business if I don't help you guys succeed in doing what you're doing. So
well, and I've thought about those partnerships for a long time, and so I'm really glad to hear you speak up about it.
Yep, very excited. I'm glad you're helping out, and I can't wait to look forward to talk to you about what we can do to kind of grow further.
Sweet, thank you.
Thank you much.
You bet.
Saoirse, you're up.
Hi.
Hi, Saoirse.
Hi, Emily. It's so good to see you. I'm so glad you're here. I mean, to be honest, I have just like so much excitement and so much to say surrounding this, and I don't want to take up that time right now. But I do have, pardon me?
You can email me if you want to.
Excellent. I am going to do that.
Okay. Excellent. Good.
But I do have a couple more specific questions that I think could be answered today. Two of those are, I would love to know any specifics on the timeline that we have. I know that could be vague, and you're working with consultants. And I would also like to know any specifics we have on the budget that we're working with. Those are the first two things, and I have one follow-up after that.
Okay. So I don't have a budget, like 100% budget right now, right? Like my ideal, and I'm going to put a number out there, but I want to tell you that I don't have this money right now. But I think we could easily spend $1 million on the site and make it really solid. And I know that sounds like a crazy amount of money for a really small site, but this is also reflective of extraordinary pricing. And so what we're seeing when we touch park renovations is that kind of budget. It's just real. So all projects and project management is scope, schedule, and budget, right? So you reduce scope, you reduce budget, it can happen in a shorter time. You increase scope, you increase budget, it takes a lot longer maybe, right? So I think your question about timeline is it's probably like this year we plan, maybe next year we build, but if we have to save more money, it might be a little longer, is my thing. And we would not do any construction without some extensive work with the market to assure that you could continue to function the same place. Or if you couldn't, we'd find, you know, another place in the what for you to be, and that would be a collaborative effort, right? So we're not doing anything without walking in step with several people, agencies, sub-agencies, whatever it is, but that's a collaborative partnership, right?
Awesome. Love to hear that collaboration on all fronts. I think especially I loved hearing Derek speak up as well, working with all of the local businesses in the surrounding area. I think will be really
Is there
cool.
a business association in the WIT? I mean, or is it kind of loose?
I don't know, but I have been interested in connecting with like all of the local businesses and kind of coming back into the new year. I'm very interested in building that.
I've
So
been talking
again,
about
maybe
a business committee.
Well, and maybe again, park development or park, you know, engagement is a catalyst for some of these other things where we really start to connect with each other around connecting the dots and resources for what we need. Because clearly, like, city agencies can't do it alone. Y'all can't do it alone. I think really banding together and parks build community. So that's a fact.
Yeah.
Right,
Excellent.
we're kind of running out of time, so I want to give Jen an opportunity. Is that okay?
I'll be shorter. I'll try not to be as excited about things.
Go ahead, Jen.
Hello, Emily.
Hi, Jen.
The last time I saw you was in person when we had a meeting at the Whiteaker Community Center. So it's been a spell.
Yeah.
But I would like to just get a little more input on, I personally would like to see Scoville Park be fenced, and the locals can go there and feel safe. And I'm hoping that we can go to that direction and have it actualized. And also, I'm concerned about how is it going to go with WJ.
Yeah. We're not going to talk about WJ tonight, Jen. Really, this is more of a focus on the Scoville Park. If you have a question, if you can make it really quick, because Anand wanted to ask a question also.
Yeah. Okay. So yes, what are your thoughts on making Scoville Park a private? I know that it's been accomplished with other neighborhood associations, and I want to know how did they accomplish it, and what are your thoughts on accomplishing it here?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I mean, and I think, I think there's, on one end, there's making a private park that only neighbors can use. And on the other end, it's a fully public park. And then is there somewhere in between, right? So like, is there a fenced park that people can come in during the day? Is it programmed enough? Is it active enough? Does it have enough people coming to it every day that it sort of displaces negative behavior? I'm not saying that's going to happen, but like that's, the vision, right? And then do we lock it up at night? So maybe that's a middle ground. But like fences are interesting because you can put them up and use them however you want. So it's there and it's a resource. And then if you don't want it as a resource, you leave the gates open. And when you do need it as a resource to control what's going on, you can close it. So I think like there's almost no harm in putting up a fence. How we maintain and operate the fence is the actual question. And so, yes, I think those are excellent comments and I wrote them down.
And then Anand, you had one question, if you can make it quick.
So the restroom.
Yes.
Hi, Emily. Very nice.
Hi, Anand. How are you?
Very nice of you to show up. Thank you.
It's good to see you.
Good to see you too. The problem with having a restroom at Scobert Park is because there are too few of them. Because it's the only one there, it attracts everything. The obvious solution is we need a whole lot more of them.
Yes, like around the neighborhood.
Around the neighborhood. So here's my thought on this. I know there are no current rules or laws requiring a certain number of restrooms, but there is a precedent in terms of dealing with businesses.
Yes.
You've got a construction business or other businesses that work outside. They are required by law to have a certain number of restrooms based on their population.
Yeah.
I believe there should be, I know there isn't, but there should be something comparable with a city.
Yeah.
You got a certain number of people in a certain area, you need a certain number of restrooms. And even if it wasn't, you know, in rote or administrative rules or anything, I think there should be some precedent set in terms of saying, we as a city have a certain responsibility to make sure that the people in our city are safe and healthy. And that requires a few things. Among them are restrooms.
We did it during COVID, actually, right? Like,
well, it was an improvement.
I mean, I don't know, like if we had enough, but I remember like being in public spaces and thinking, oh my gosh, there it is. There is a public, you know, we had public restrooms in a wide variety of places around the city. So I think your point is super well taken. I think that there are partnerships across the neighborhood with businesses and potentially with the city and whatever else that could likely, you know, make something like that be successful. And that, again, maybe the park is a catalyst around figuring out how to make restroom service not be focused at the park, but available.
Right. Thank you.
So, of course, yes, I hear you.
Thank you, Emily.
Yes.
And thank you for coming to answer our questions. And I'm sure you're gonna keep in touch
Does
with
everyone, I think I'll put in the chat, I'll put my email address. Anyone is welcome to email me anytime. I may not get back to you instantly, but I will put your comments into a folder and talk about sharing these things. I think the last thing I just want to say, the restrooms at the WJ they've worked okay, but it could be better. The last thing I want to say is that there are neighbors along, I think it's West 5th, and it's really important that we maintain a buffer at the back of the park between them and the back of their houses. And so I think that was a really important piece of information that we maintained that we'll keep. Anyway, and then I also want to say that I have a lot of gratitude for the folks. There's this little L shape back there, and that we have a lovely park adoption agreement with the immediate houses around that area who have been gardening the area. And I think that's a lovely, just a really great now shared space that actually just is able to be programmed to some degree. And it's not just an open random space that we don't maintain very well, frankly. So, okay, I'll put my email address in the chat, and thank you all for being here. I super appreciate your feedback and your questions, and I'm really excited to be a resource and to talk about this.
Thank you, Emily.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Dilenia.
And then up next is going to be Sonia and Frank. Frank from EWEB, go ahead.
Well, thank you, Dilenia. Appreciate the invitation. It's nice to see everybody this evening. The first thing I'm going to do is to introduce. I mean, we really have the pleasure of having the EWEB board president, Sonia Carlson. Commissioner Carlson is with us this evening. She's going to present a few of some really high level, very quick things that EWEB is involved with. We are doing a lot of different things on a lot of fronts. And so Sonia is going to run through a few of those, and then we wanted to leave some time to respond to questions and just general questions from those in attendance. And so it's nice to be back here, but first thing I'm going to do is pass it off to Commissioner Carlson. Sonia, go ahead.
Excellent. Thank you, Frank. And thank you very much to all of you for having us here tonight. We have some really important work that we wanted to share with the community, and so we appreciate the time. And I hope that I can share my screen. Please
Should
bear
be
with me.
able
I
to.
have multiple screens here, so I hope I get the right one. Can you see the presentation?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. Okay, so again, I'm Sonia, Eugene Water and Electric Board President. I've been a commissioner since 2017, so quite a few years now, surprisingly. Let me get to the next slide here. And again, I have multiple screens, so just bear with me while I make sure that I'm clicking through the right one here. Okay, that turnover. Okay. So we have a number of different topics this evening. We have all of those that are on the list there. We're going to focus on the primary ones that are bolded for the majority of the kind of intro part here, but we do have information on any of those other topics that are in the slide there that if you'd like to talk about that or anything else when we do the Q&A section, please feel free. That's why we do these kind of outreach sessions. So the Lieberg Hydroelectric Project, the Integrated Resource Planning, and Drinking Water Resiliency were the three that we decided to focus on for this evening. I am the commissioner, the EWEB commissioner for Ward 7, which includes the Whiteaker area, parts of River Road, Bethel. I also have Ward 6 and 7, so the Bethel area. So this area here is the area that I represent. And we also have Commissioner Mindy Schlossberg, who is an at-large commissioner, so she represents the entire area. If you ever have a question, have a need that you think that we might be able to assist you with, please don't hesitate to reach out. That is part of the benefit to having a public utility. We are elected commissioners and we're here to serve. We want to help make good decisions for the community so that we have, clean water and electricity that is, low carbon and supports the community. So that's what we're here for. Please reach out. So up first is the Lieberg Hydroelectric Project. And what we wanted to do is actually play a little video, and I might need to stop the slideshow or switch screens that I'm sharing in order to do that. Let me see if I can just minimize this for a second. I have it pulled up. I think I actually have to stop sharing this screen and then share the other screen. So bear with me a brief moment. Okay, can you see the EWEB?
Yes.
You can see it. Okay, perfect. Okay, and then I will hit play and hopefully we
EWEB has decided to decommission the Lieberg Hydroelectric Project. Structural issues in the Lieberg Canal forced EWEB to cease electricity generation in 2018, launching an examination into whether EWEB should continue investing in the 90-year-old facility or to decommission it and get carbon-free energy elsewhere. The multi-year evaluation revealed that the heavy expenses to return to service would commit EWEB to a high cost of electricity for at least the next 40 years. Instead, EWEB could purchase electricity from the Bonneville Power Administration at a much lower cost. Closing the Lieberg facility would also lower EWEB's liability to future economic risks, as climate change and increasing regulations on hydropower generation raise further doubts as to the economic viability of the Lieberg project. Finally, decommissioning Lieberg also aligns with our customers' values to provide reliable service and protect drinking water quality while reducing costs. To decommission the Lieberg Hydroelectric Project, EWEB will remove Lieberg Dam and return Lieberg Lake to river form, develop access to Lieberg Dam Road on the south side of the McKenzie River, repair the Lieberg Canal so it can convey tributary flows to the river, and work with neighbors who get water from the Lieberg Canal to find alternate solutions, with particular focus on supporting the Lieberg and McKenzie fish hatcheries. EWEB will conduct a similar evaluation of the Walterville Hydroelectric Project within the next 10 years. In arriving at this decision, EWEB published updates at 20 board meetings, held 10 public listening sessions, and received hundreds of public comments. We recognize the community's support for Lieberg Lake. While it is not possible to continue obstructing the McKenzie River without generating electricity, we aim to preserve Lloyd Knox Park and to work with the community to design future recreational opportunities. Over the course of 2023, EWEB will create a Lieberg decommissioning action plan to understand upcoming requirements and milestones. It is clear this process will take time, and we anticipate at least 10 years of analyses before decommissioning activities begin on the ground. To learn more and to sign up for our Lieberg Updates newsletter, please go to eweb.org/LiebergCanal.
All right, well, thank you for taking a quick minute there to listen to the video that we put on. Let me, again, switch screens, go back to the PowerPoint we have. So basically, we went through a very extensive process to evaluate the Lieberg power plant and generation station. We were forced to close it when the, oh my goodness, hold on 1 second. Sorry, YouTube has a mind of its own and decides to play things when I don't want it to. Thank you. There we go. So basically we had 20 public listening sessions, or 10 public listening sessions. We had 20 different meetings where the board discussed the topic. It was not a decision that we have taken lightly. We have been reaching out, and while we've made this decision to go down this path, like the video said, there's 10 years of planning and other opportunities that if we get new information that comes out that means that we need to go in a different direction, then we'll do that due diligence and we'll do that good work to look at and see if this is, if there's a different path. Right now, it was a very costly project. I'm going to kind of skip through this one a little bit. Let's go to this slide here. So of the 4 main options that we reviewed, the 4 options being full decommissioning, so shutting down the entire canal and returning all of the land back to before the canal and the power generation station were there. Full return to service, which would have required rebuilding the entire power generation facility. A partial return to service, which was building another facility in a slightly different area. And then finally, kind of a middle ground was decommissioning, but then doing a stormwater conveyance. And that's what this option is. That's what we chose to do. As you can tell from the options, full decommissioning was $222 million. The partial return to service and the decommission to stormwater conveyance were very similar in cost, but we do believe that when you look at the risks associated with generating at all on the river there, moving forward, we're moving into a much higher regulatory environment. As you know, over time, regulations don't decrease. And with climate change, we're definitely seeing, different water flows. There was a lot of question from the board as to whether or not, if we return to service, if we would be able to, once we build the plant, the regulatory costs could increase significantly over the course of that time that we're evaluating and rebuilding, and less the cost could increase dramatically. And finally, when we look at climate change, would we have the weather and the water on there to support running it? And so we really did not want to build a new plant there when it has such high risk of not being able to actually generate capacity or generate electricity for the community. And so when you look at the risk of this option compared to the risk of decommissioning, it's negligible. This is actually a lower risk, lower cost scenario. And so then as we look at our other options for generating electricity, all of these options here have a much lower cost than any of the alternatives that we had for actually recommissioning the Lieberg power plant. So you can see these are levelized cost of energy curves. That's what this stands for, is levelized cost of energy. So it's an attempt to make all of these energy costs comparable, essentially. So you can see that these options up here are just, they're much less cost. And, you know, as good stewards of the financial resources of this community, this was a major player in what we've decided to do, because every cost that we, you know, every amount that we have to raise costs, that impacts somebody with a critical utility that they need to survive. I mean, people need water, they need electricity to survive. This particular rate impact impacts electricity rates. And, you know, we don't take that lightly. We know that there are people that live paycheck to paycheck. And so this is just a really critical part of what we look at. Cost was not the only item that we looked at. There were many different economic, the economic opportunities, the economic risks. We looked at the environmental impact. We looked at the different recreational benefits. Like you said, we did customer surveys, we did public outreach. So we did look at a wide multitude of different stakeholder engagement type impacts on the project. So I'm going to go to the next one. And so kind of feeding into that was looking at our integrated resource plan. And if you'd like to learn more about our integrated resource plan, you can go to eweb.org/IRP. What this basically is a plan for looking at how are we going to meet our energy needs over a long term. And so this is an ongoing project that we do. One of the things that I wanted to point out on this particular slide is that we have a town hall coming up on February 21st. And Frank, where is that located again? Can you?
Yeah, that'll be at either the Rock or the downtown facility. We haven't decided yet. I think it's actually the Rock. Okay. The Roosevelt Operations Center, by the way, is the Rock.
There we go. I was just going to say, and the Rock is the Roosevelt Operations Center. Okay. Great. So people have the opportunity to learn more about, the work that we're doing to plan for our energy future. These are some of the major milestones we've hit so far, and this is what we're looking at coming up. So in March, we have a sensitivity analysis. Coming off of that, we have we'll have board approval for the final report and action plan, and then we'll continue doing modeling moving forward. And this is not something that just stops and then it sits there. I mean, this is something we're continually looking at because we get new information. There are new energy resources out there. And what we're trying to do is match the demand in the community with the supply. And sometimes certain types of resources generate power at certain times, like solar, for instance, doesn't generate in the evening. And you wouldn't have solar available when there's a major storm event, but you might have wind at certain times. And so balancing when those types of energy sources are available to the demand is a big part of what this project looks at. So as kind of preliminary work that's come out of it, right now has continued to show that the Bonneville Power Administration, the major hydroelectric projects in our system, that is one of our lowest cost options, and it has the one of the lowest carbon impacts as well, because we don't use obviously it's not using a fuel source like natural gas or something of that nature to generate power. Coming off of that, we have a few other options that kind of pop to the top. So battery storage is one of the lower cost options that comes out. Wind, demand response. Demand response is basically working with large users of electricity in the area. Say, okay, if we know that a major peak is coming, we have a big storm event, can we work with stakeholders and partners in the community that use a lot of energy to say, hey, can you not use energy right now? So that's a partnership sort of agreement. And then conservation, obviously not using, not using energy in the first place. So finding other ways to be more efficient and use the energy very responsibly. And then lastly, this comes out way at the very end is the small modular reactors. So that's what the model right now is showing, and we have more work to put into that. So like I said, right now, kind of in this public engagement process, and we'll have more on that. Please check out the eweb.org/IRP if this is something you're interested in, and attend the town hall meeting on the 21st. And finally, the last topic that we wanted to talk about in this main part is drinking water resiliency. So one of the things we've been working over the last few years is having distributed resources throughout the community so that you have access to water in the event of an emergency. So we're trying to work with partners throughout the area to spread out where our water sites are. The Howard Elementary School location is one option here, and then also the Lane Event Center is another option that's very close to the Whiteaker area. So depending on bridges and roads and people's capability to get to those different locations, right now those are where our stations are set up, and we have different water outreach and events throughout the year where we do offer these 3-gallon storage containers, so that while we do want to be able to have these facilities available in the event of emergency, we also want to encourage people to be prepared at their homes, because we know that the best way for people to survive and get through these sorts of emergencies is to have some of those resources available. We also have a Pledge to Prepare program that we put out a few years ago, and what the program does is it basically breaks down into kind of monthly steps, actions that you can do to get your own home prepared for you, your family, your pets, emergency contact information. Maybe it's getting the water solidified in your house, and then each year you update that program and look at what your resources are. Maybe you need to switch out the water every year, but it gives you kind of a guide for what to do, so you don't have to take it all at one point, because that can be a little overwhelming. So they have just little bits that you can work on every month to help get prepared. Okay, and another piece that we're working on in terms of drinking water resiliency is we are replacing, there are a number of large storage tanks in the area that need replacing. They're at their end of life. And what we are doing, instead of replacing one large one with another large one, we are replacing each of the larger tanks with 2 smaller tanks. And what we're able to do there is that if one of the tanks needs servicing, we can shut one down and do the service on it and keep the other one operational. So it gives us a bit more resiliency there and flexibility in terms of maintenance on the projects. And then, if one needs maintenance, we can work on it, but we can still maintain the level of service for the community. So we have 3 big projects that are coming up. Right now we're working on the decommissioning of College Hill and the replacements there on Patterson. And then we'll have Santa Clara and Hawkins here coming up on the backs of that. And then last water resiliency piece we wanted to talk about is the drinking water resiliency. So right now we have one main water source, the McKenzie River, for our water source. And over the last few years, we've been working to get a secondary water source as a main backup, looking at roughly 19 million gallons per day capacity on the Willamette River. And again, just like I mentioned with the water tanks, it is helpful to be able to shut down a plant, do facility maintenance. If something happened in our watershed that we were not able to handle or manage, and it was a long-term impact, it would be good to be able to, still be able to bring drinking water into the community. So this is another resiliency sort of effort. So this is the kind of current timeline, permitting and engineering and construction over the next few years. And with that, I have our contact information up here, and I'd like to turn it over to all of you so you can ask questions. Thank you. It was a little long-winded there, but.
If you can stop sharing your screen, and Jen actually has a question.
Okay, absolutely.
Thank you.
Let me get to the right screen so I can stop sharing here.
There we go.
Okay.
Jen, go ahead.
Hi, my basic question is, are you telling me that my electric, my EWEB is going to go up? And I'd like to know how this reserves that you have, or you are cleaning one, or the other one is being used. How come there's only two? Has EWEB done enough to preserve other tanks, so that we don't become like California, who they never get the message?
Sure. Okay, so I can take the first shot, and then Frank can fill in any gaps that I missed. So, well, in terms of the water rates, we did have a water rate. We had an increase to rates this year. As with everybody across the country, we're also experiencing inflationary pressures, supply chain shortages and such. We really did everything that we could to try to keep the rates down. The rates that we voted in for this year, the increase, are really due to that. We just earlier this month, a week ago, voted on the Lieberg project. That will have more rate increases, but that will come in future years. It's not going to take place in this year. And what we are trying to do as a utility is to spread the increase out so it's not so abrupt all at once. So we're trying what we call kind of smoothing that out so that people can adjust to it and it's not an immediate hit that's really drastic. So that will come. Frank can talk a little bit more about that if you have anything to add. And then in terms of the water storage tanks, so there are 3 different tanks that we are replacing, and at each of those sites that we are replacing, we're putting in 2 tanks. So there's actually a total of 6 tanks in spread across 3 different locations. And that's not the entirety of our water storage system. That's just the tanks that need upgrades right now. So, Frank, do you want to add anything else there?
Yeah, I think you covered how we're handling the rates. The other piece of it is that we do have multiple tanks, and these aren't the only ones. We do have tanks for higher elevations, for example. And the reason that we're going with multiple tanks is we have such a big difference between how much water is consumed in the winter versus the summer. So in the summer, about 3 times more water is used in the city of Eugene than in the winter. And water can go stale. If you have too much storage, water can go stale. So you want to keep a decent amount of flow through your system. Right now it's Mackenzie River to these base level storage reservoirs, and then it gets distributed from there. So feel pretty good about where we are from a storage perspective and a pump station perspective, which we use to distribute the water. We do need to look at a second source, primary source, which is the reason that we're looking at the Willamette River to supplement what we're doing on the Mackenzie River.
Thank you. I just know that from my experience, whenever EWEB comes, we are automatic. We're going to get a rate increase, which is a challenge. But I would like to know how the fires that happened a couple of years ago affected everything. And what have you done to protect us here? What area do you cover? I'm sorry, Commissioner Sonia, I don't recall. What area do you cover?
Yeah, so I'm actually the commissioner for the Whiteaker area. It's Ward 6 and 7. So I have wards 6 and 7, which is Whiteaker, River Road, Santa Clara, Bethel, Train Song area, industrial area. So that's the area that I represent. In terms of the EWEB territory, we have the Eugene area. We provide service and upriver, up the Mackenzie area. And we also supply water to Veneta and Coburg. So those are some of the kind of main points from that perspective. Now, in terms of the rate increase, so for the first 5 years that I served on this board, we I never voted in a rate increase. We actually had a rate decrease on the water side. Last year, in 2021, sorry, not last year, I guess the year before then, right? Frank, 2021 was the first year that we had actually voted in a rate increase on the water side. And that in part was to do water source protection up in the McKenzie area. So when we're talking about after the fires happened, we invested $1 million initially right away to help get the ground level taken care of, making sure that it was cleaned up, that the toxic kind of things from the fires were not getting into the waterway, replanting the areas along the riverfront there so that it would kind of fill in the banks and solidify it so that we didn't have as much runoff from the kind of toxic materials there. So we did a lot just initially right out of the gates to help protect the water source. And then the rate increase that we put in on only the water side was to fund an additional amount. Frank, how much was it again?
It was 12 million over 5 years.
Okay. 12 million over 5 years. Okay, so it was, over the 5-year term, we invested a lot of money in doing just basic. Well, Frank, why don't you kind of jump in? Sorry, my mouth is getting really dry. Just distracting me here. I'll get some more water here.
Just so the fires affect us in two primary ways. One, we had to rebuild our electric service territory in the McKenzie Valley because of the Holiday Farm fire to some 200 homes or so. So we had a pretty significant amount of rebuild on the electric side of the utility. On the water side of the utility, water quality and ensuring water quality is our number one concern whenever you have the potential to have landslides and various chemical and organic runoff into your watershed. So the water quality piece and ensuring that we were helping to rebuild the watershed and do a lot of riparian work and work along the river. That was the investment that Commissioner Carlson is talking about. So it really affected both sides of the utility. I will say that water quality during the fire temporarily sort of had a musty, smoky taste to the water, but we were able to adjust our treatment process and eliminate that after about a day or so and continue to treat the water quite well. The other thing we're interested in preventing is treating is cyanotoxins. I know people are very aware of blue-green algae and the fact that a warming climate is starting to create more situations where we have to address that. So, and fires don't help those situations.
No, because it puts nitrogen into the water in it. And so it creates more of an environment that growth can happen. Sorry, what were you going to say?
I was just going to say, we're kind of running out of time, but Anand had a question for you. If we can have him finish up.
Yep, I'll make it quick. I'm just curious. First, thank you for being here, and thank EWEB for being EWEB, because we have some of the best water and power in the area, period. And you guys are doing great. Thank you very much. I do have a question. I'm very curious about backup power energy storage and how much EWEB has looked into the practicality of doing some of that. I mean, water and power, that by itself is an obvious connection, because by pumping water upstream, you've got backup power for when it comes back downstream again. You've talked about the battery storage. That's fine, but tends to have some issues of its own. Another potential has been using the excess power to generate hydrogen, which can thereby use to generate power later when you need it. Anyway, there's a whole slew of things and combinations of things that are possible. And I'm just wondering, has EWEB had the time and ability to do the research necessary to come up with practical solutions for energy storage in our area? Because as we're moving towards more renewables, we're going to need to have something which will help back all that stuff up. So I'm just curious as to what EWEB's had the ability to do so far.
Yeah, the simple answer is yes. We're looking at a lot of different options, and storage on the energy side is certainly part of the equation. As you mentioned, there's different kinds of profiles, and the more you interject renewables, which are intermittent, they're dispatched by Mother Nature. So when the wind blows, you get electricity. When the sun shines, you get electricity, but there's times that you don't. And so we have to be able to supplement that with types of resources that can generate on our demand. Now, we are lucky that Columbia River is a great big battery in many ways from a water perspective, but we've also looked at pump storage as an example. We're very interested in the future development of hydrogen, such as you mentioned, and other kinds of I'll say green fuels that can be actually created when you have times of surplus from intermittent resources. And so we are looking at all of those, and all those do go into our integrated resource planning process. And so as we go through these iterations, we'll take a look at a number of different options and ultimately end up with a combination that has to work together. So and then it has to work together to meet demand all the time. So at peak demands, at low demands, as electrification happens, as climate change happens. So these are all assumptions we're putting into the modeling and the thought process. But simple answer is yes, but it's more complicated when you look at the details.
Of course. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, thank you, Commissioner, and thank you, Frank, for coming in today and speaking to us. And if you wouldn't mind, maybe putting that one email address in the chat for us before you go. There you go.
Yep, I was just typing in.
Thank you so much, you guys. I appreciate you guys coming in tonight.
Yes,
thanks for the opportunity.
Appreciate it.
Great to see everybody.
Reach out anytime. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
All right, next up was going to be Thea, but it looks like she had to drop off. Thea had requested to, she had a fundraising idea, which was sent on email, but the motion was to hit up the businesses for a fundraiser event for the Whiteaker that is around safety and sanitation. So the motion is to apply for these fundraisers with local events. Did anybody want to second the motion? Gail is seconding the motion. And then everybody who's for fundraising, raise your hand. Yeah. 7, okay. And it looks like it passed. Awesome. And then just a few announcements. One of them is that February 11th, they are having a fundraiser for, and I'm going to put it in the chat, for it's February Food for Lane County Food Drive. Rosalind Fox, she's the community organizer. If anybody wants to get involved in the Lane County Food Drive, please contact her. Another thing, I personally contacted and then also wrote from the Whiteaker community to the Public Works, to the Public Works maintenance. I also CC'd the mayor and also the city council about our road signs that we've now, with today's, I believe that is the 3rd time that somebody's gotten hit. 2 of them were hit and runs on 7th. So one of the things that I asked for was to find out when they are going to change at least the road signs. I know it's not going to stop them, but we do have a service request number And that service request number, I'll also put it in the chat for everybody to take a look at. So if they want to call in on it, they absolutely can, or email the Public Works Maintenance about it. And then the charter is going to be sent out. I sent out the charter for everyone's reviews and comments. One of the things, oh, Claire, is it too late?
No, it's not. I just wanted to note one thing, that the 20 miles per hour signs would not be eligible for 7th Avenue, unfortunately. And I won't try to explain that now, but while I am glad that that's being checked up on, 7th Avenue would not be eligible for that miles per hour speed limit reduction.
Gotcha. Thank you. And then we're going to be working on the newsletter. It's going to be a pretty hefty one this time around. So if anybody wants to, oh, Stephen, I want to put the project on there too. The history project. But pretty much what I have on there is the charter. We're going to talk about the murals, street signs, the elections for this year, and then also the housing project and the history projects that are kind of still in the works. The other thing was that my last thing is that everybody knows that I will not be chair next year. I won't be sitting on the board. I will still be on the council, but I did want to make a nomination for Dennis Ramsey to be chair. And I know that's probably surprising a lot of people on why. But I do want to nominate Dennis because we still have a ton of work with grants, and I just think that he might be the best person to get us through that. So that's all we have for today.
I have a couple questions, if that's okay, just really quickly. Well, so one is just a reminder to please send me the list of topics that you'd like in the mailer. I heard back from Cindy Kohler, and she said that yes, it's fine for us to go with a bigger formatted mailer. So she said that it'll just, you know, come out of our funds. So that's great. Second, just an order of business. I don't think we can actually formally make nominations right now in this, like, you know, time of the nominations, I think, have to come actually in the elections process. But I think you were just trying to indicate that it's a heads up that you intend to make a nomination, right?
No, per the charter, I can make a nomination. And
okay,
that's what I'm doing.
Whatever you say.
And then as far as the newsletter itself, Thea and I are going to meet tomorrow also. So if anybody has anything extra that they want to put in that newsletter, it's going to be tomorrow is kind of the deadline, which is kind of hard. But like I said, the housing project's going to be in there, the history project, the charter. I haven't seen anything about the charter, and that's going to be something that we're going to be talking about pretty extensively at the next board meeting. All righty, everyone. Well, I want to thank you for coming tonight, and everyone have a great night.